It's time to give you my favorite top 10 Sylvester Stallone movies. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dave, why are you wearing a Star Wars story shirt, Dave? Disney Star Wars sucks, Dave. Disney Star Wars sucks, Dave. Hey, listen, I actually didn't mind this movie. I actually thought it was all right. It was a hell of a lot better than The Last Jedi. That movie is a shit show. What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. It's all a theater of the mind. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. I know I can hear the people now. Oh my God! Anyway, so in this video I want to give you my top 10 favorite Sylvester Stallone movies. Now, this is in no particular order, okay? It's not from best to worst, worst to best, or anything like that. Although I did put, I would say, my favorite number one, obviously. So it is in order. Probably in order of my favorite, but not necessarily in order of best, if you know what I mean. Because sometimes, you know, like, for example, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best Indiana Jones film, but my favorite is Temple of Doom, right? So there is that sort of distinction. So this is an order essentially of my favorite, not necessarily what is the best if we were going to analyze it and critique it from a different perspective. So yeah, and I've got my old Rambo knife here. Imagine that. I'd set that up with blood spraying all over the place. You guys like, holy fuck, man. Did you see that video of McRae? He cut his tongue. There's like blood splattering all over the place. Incredible. Anyway, so here we go. All right, number 10. Again, not from best to worst or worst to best. It's just my favorites, okay? Number 10 is Tango and Cash. I love this movie. Although I have to admit, it's not a movie that I watch on a regular basis. I mean, is it really anybody? Does anybody watch Tango and Cash on a regular basis? Anyway, so, but it definitely is one of my favorite Sylvester Stallone movies, and I'm a big fan of Kurt Russell as well. And it's just, the chemistry between them was really good, and it's too bad they never made a sequel, because they were talking about it. They had, I don't know if I want to say they had definite plans to do it. I'm a little hazy on those details. Comment below and let me know if you're not. But I definitely know that it was on the table as a potential. But unfortunately, they just didn't do it. Number 9 is Locked Up. I love this movie. Look, Sylvester Stallone plays the redemption role so well, and in a lot of his movies, he is that underdog guy, or falsely accused, or, you know, whatever it is, up against all odds, right? And in a lot of respects, we can relate to that in our own everyday lives. So, at least at one point or another in our lives, we have been an underdog. We have wanted to rise up and have some sort of redemption against whatever it is, right? Whether it's really serious in our lives or whether it's just all fun and games like in sports, or who knows. But Locked Up is fun. I mean, Donald Sutherland's in that. You know, I mean, come on. He fucking plays a mean-ass baddie like nobody. And, you know, I love that movie. So that is my number 9. And in case you haven't noticed, I'm not reviewing each of these movies. I'm just giving you the list and talking briefly about them. Anyway, number 8 is Over the Top. Now, this movie is one of those, it's not a great movie, but it's one of those guilty pleasures. It's not a bad movie or anything like that. When I was younger, I remember getting Over the Top and Locked Up mixed up in terms of the titles and which one went to what movie, because you could kind of interchange them and they both kind of make sense in some regards. Look, Sly is in phenomenal shape. When I am 74 or 5 or 3 or however old he is now, I hope I look as good as he does. I mean, granted, he's had a little help. But he looks good. And he certainly looked good back in the 80s. But he was nowhere near the beast of some of those, beasts that he was going up against in terms of the arm wrestling. And so you kind of have to suspend disbelief a little bit. I mean, Sly is about my size in terms of my height. So he's not an overly big guy. But if you know anything about professional arm wrestling, you know that sometimes guys that appear huge don't have the proper technique, or guys that appear smaller, that there's just no way they're going to win this match because of their technique, because of they know how to put, I don't know the fundamentals, but there's certain techniques and certain things that you implement. And if you have raw strength already, you can actually take somebody over the top, which was all about that film in terms of the technique. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he understood and learned the proper techniques of how to sort of pigeonhole his opponent, where the strength becomes almost a non-factor because of the way that he was able to articulate all that kind of shit. Anyway, cool shit, fun movie about redemption again, right? Because he wants to get back to his son and all that kind of shit. And so definitely that's my number 8. Fucking love that movie. A Sylvester Stallone classic, which I'm surprised they haven't remade yet, although I think they're going to. Number 7 for me is Cliffhanger. Oh my God. This is one of those, 1993, I think. This is one of those movies where imagine being in that position. Imagine you're out there, you're rock climbing, you're cliff hanging, or whatever you're doing out there, right? And you get into a position where you're literally, True Liesing it, right? Like the end of True Lies with Arnold and Jamie Lee Curtis, how he's hanging on to her right out of the helicopter. Well, that's kind of like what this was. And this was a year prior in 1993. Sly is holding on to his best friend's wife. Oh my God. I mean, it's bad enough if it's your own wife, but the guilt you would feel letting go. Having to let go. Well, I guess he doesn't really let go. No, he doesn't let go. If memory serves, he's trying to get his best friend's wife to reach up with another arm or something like that, and the glove that she's holding on to is falling off, and he's like, I can't, come on, whatever. I mean, can you imagine if that was actually happening? Although I love the suspense they build around that scene. It takes forever for her to actually drop, and I'm pretty sure the glove kind of falls off, and then we cut to Sly going, and then we cut back to her, and the glove is falling off again, and then we cut back to Sly, and he's like, I can't do it again, and then we cut back, and the glove's falling off again. It's like, oh my God, will the glove just fall off already? I love it. It's like, I think we've already got to this place on her palm where the glove is. I think you see it sort of move up like 3 or 4 times before it actually or before she actually falls. But nonetheless, that whole John Lithgow plays a great villain. That was the first movie. No, actually, that was the second movie. The first movie I was introduced to him would have been Harry and the Hendersons, which is another classic. But he plays a great villain. He's in that movie, of course, and the vast majority of it takes place in the mountains in the winter and shit like that. And Sly, this is like peak Sly, right? He looks great, looks ripped, chiseled, awesome shit. Love me some Cliffhanger. Number 6 for me is Rambo from 2008. Oh my God. Anyway, so this movie, if you have not seen Rambo from 2008, I'm not saying it's a great movie. I'm not saying it's a phenomenal movie. I'm just simply saying that it is unabashed male testosterone, blood, guts, explosions, and heads exploding. It is great. My buddy Bruce, who you guys know, as of shooting this video, he's yet to see that movie. And I said to him the other day when we were working on It's Me, Billy, I was like, dude, you gotta come over and we gotta watch that. Like, it is just nothing. It's just pure, oh man, yeah, man stuff, yeah. It's great. And the fact that they actually shot that movie in Myanmar or Burma, I forget which one it's called now. It was either Burma, then Myanmar, or Myanmar, then Burma. I think it was Myanmar, and now it's Burma, I think. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, they actually shot over there. And that is one of the, most insecure, non-secure, I should say, war-torn zones you can imagine. And they had to do a lot of negotiating to actually be able to shoot over there on location, which they did. So knowing that when you watch the movie, think about that and go, it'd be like shooting a movie in Beirut, or right in like, right in like Syria or something. Hey, we're just going to shoot an action movie here. It's like, what the fuck, right? Intense shit. But definitely Rambo 2008 is just, heads exploding, bodies exploding. I'm in. Totally in. Okay, number 5 for me is Rocky IV. This is my favorite of the Rocky franchise. I think it tends to be a lot of people's favorite of the Rocky franchise, but here's a situation where it's clearly not the best Rocky movie, but it's the most fun. 3 was the movie where a tonal shift was beginning to happen, where it was starting to become a little comic booky, cartoony-ish, just a little bit, right? I mean, you got Clubber Lang and there, it's kind of like, what the fuck, right? And the whole idea was, and the sound effects and the punching and shit like that. I mean, it's always been kind of like that, but Rocky 3 was definitely kind of that bridge. It was like the Elm Street 3 of the franchise, where it's that bridge between what we know from 2 and then what eventually happens in 4. Rocky 3 is that bridge. And so when we get to Rocky 4, which is my number 5 here, it's right in the middle of the Cold War, us versus them versus us, redemption. His best friend Apollo dies at the hands of this giant, mammoth Russian boxer who's just like fucking Incredible Hulk He-Man shit with his power. And he's got to go and face him in Russia, which really wasn't Russia, but in Russia, I think that was up here. I think it was not in Toronto, but I think they might have shot some of that. That might have been Vancouver. I stand to be corrected, but it might have been Vancouver. Something like that. Anyway, so, but the whole idea and the music, the training montage, one of the best training montages in the history of cinema with that music. Dun, 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 whatever, you know how it goes. It's fucking just love that shit. It is nothing but pure. The whole movie's about redemption, and we can live vicariously through that movie. Like, fuck yeah, let's go fucking get it. You know what I'm saying? Love me some Rocky 4. Great shit. Number 4 for me is, what do I have there? Number 4 is Demolition Man. Number 4 is Demolition Man. This was, I believe, if it wasn't Sandra Bullock's first movie, it was one of her first movies. I saw this movie in the theater back in 1993, I believe. Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, Sandra Bullock, takes place in the future. What year does it take place in? Comment below and let me know. It takes place, it opens in 1996. And of course, when the movie came out in 1993, it was like, whoa, 1996, that's only 3 years from now. Holy fuck, right? But the actual future, I forget which date it is. Comment below and let me know. I don't have time to look it up right now. But anyway, it takes place in the future, and the whole, seashells thing with the toilet shit, that's fucking funny. And this is one of Sly's better action movies. He's had some that have been, sort of like, it was different. It was like almost like Sly's version of Total Recall. I'm not saying that the themes are the same. I'm not saying that it's a better movie. I'm just saying in terms of the futuristic aspect and the action and things like that, it's one of his better action movies for sure. Because once he got into the mid to late 90s, as we know, Sly's career took a huge nosedive. So it was one of not only his better action films, one of his last pretty good action films. The whole, and there's comedy in there too, which is kind of funny, right? And I think Sly does comedy all right. I don't think he's necessarily a leading man in terms of comedy, but definitely I think he can quip with the best of them. And the whole seashells thing and shit like that was funny as hell. So for me, number 4, Demolition Man, seeing Sly and Snipes go up against each other, just fucking amazing shit. I love the whole idea how you're frozen, right? But you're able to come back, and shit. It's just great shit. It's great shit. And they have to unleash Sly in order to be able to tackle, Snipes, who is a criminal from the past, and the future doesn't know how to deal with him, so they have to bring somebody from the past to be able to deal with the past. You have to fight fire with fire. Woo! And my number 3 is the very first Rambo movie, First Blood. I love this movie. Now, this movie is 1982, I believe. And this, of course, his two most iconic characters, Rocky and Rambo. And Rocky came out in 1976. So there was about 6 years there before Rambo came out. And although Sylvester Stallone did do a few other movies outside of the Rambo franchise between 1976 and 1982, there was nothing he did that really took off in terms of another character, something else he could fall back on and really get emotionally invested into in terms of an actor, like Rambo. And Rambo's an awesome fucking movie, and it still holds up today. Yes, it's a little dated and things like that, but it does, like the whole idea, again, about redemption, about fighting back against the system, and being so angry that he fought for his country, and this is the way that he's treated. I put my life on the line, and I can't even get a fucking meal. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck? He put his life on the line. All he wants is a fucking meal. Give him a meal. Come on. Just give him some cookies. Give him some chocolate milk. Give him something, man. You know what I mean? But the overall bigger picture and theme of that is very true. And there's a lot of truth to the way a lot of veterans were treated and even are treated today. It's a cinematic version of it, but certainly there's some truth in the layers in the bigger picture of what they're saying there. And it's just an awesome movie. And his knife in that movie is not quite this big yet. Okay? It doesn't get this big until at least Rambo 2, maybe even Rambo 3. In the first Rambo, it's probably about half that size and half that width, but it's still the same kind of shape. Still fucking amazing. Listen, I wouldn't want to be out in the jungle with him, man. There's no fucking way I'd want to be out there. So yeah, Rambo, First Blood, classic shit. Love that fucking movie. Number 2 for me is the original Rocky from 1976. This is the quintessential Sylvester Stallone movie in many ways, because he is essentially, in some ways, playing a fictional version of himself. We all know the story. He was down on his luck. He had no money. He wrote the script in I don't know how many days with a pencil or a pen and legal pad, and he wrote it. And it's essentially about himself, but he's using he's using the idea of boxing, the sport of boxing, as the catalyst to tell this story about this relationship and this underdog in life, not just in boxing, but in life. Really, the heart of the story is about Adrian and Rocky, and about these two really sort of, introverted, quiet, down on their luck, kind of come together and find love and happiness. And he uses boxing as the catalyst to tell that story. But he could have used any sport. I mean, he could have used football. He could have used baseball. He could have used hockey. He could have, boxing was really big at that time, of course. And so it makes sense. And of course, there was inspiration for him from certain aspects of the boxing industry and sport. But certainly it's not just a boxing movie, right? There's a lot of heart there, and there's that one line that Sly always points to in the movie where he's lying in bed with Adrian, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says something to the effect of, if I can do this, blah, 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 they'll know I'm just not another bum from the streets. And that's it. And Sly has even said, that's what it's about, right? So if you look at it from the perspective of Sly being a real guy, trade out the boxing with the acting, right? He wanted to prove to himself and prove to everybody that he had what it took to be an actor. He had what it took to be part of an industry. He was a starving artist. He was a starving actor, right? He was Rocky in that movie. Switch out boxing with acting, and it's the same fucking story, essentially. So that's what's so great about that movie, and that's why it has such longevity at the end of the day. And the subsequent sequels, as we know, got a little cartoony, and and things like that, but still a lot of fun, depending on which sequel you are talking about. So for me, the Rocky movie is my second favorite of all time because it is the quintessential Sylvester Stallone story in many respects. I mean, he even had to sell his dog, which he then bought back after the money he made from Rocky, but he had to sell his dog. He was so poor. Unbelievable. And now we come to my number one favorite Sylvester Stallone movie. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, Dave, if it's not Rocky and it's not Rambo, what the hell could it be? Well, this is a little unorthodox. It's not one that you hear tossed around a lot, although you do hear it from time to time when talking about Sylvester Stallone's movies. Now keep in mind, again, this is not a list of what I think are his best movies, although some of his best are on here clearly. This is a list of my favorites. So my number one favorite of his, although it is neck and neck with a few of these on here, and I think it's because it's such a departure from what we think of when we think of Sylvester Stallone and what we know him to be. And he does it so brilliantly. He does it so well that it ends up being one of my favorites, if not my favorite, here at number one, which is 1997's Copland. I mean, Sly really put on the acting chops for that movie. He gained about 45 pounds, I think. He wanted to feel sluggish. They said to him, we could put on a fat suit, a belly for you. He's like, no, I'm going to put it on. And I remember in 1997, because back in 1997, I was wrapping up high school and I was 18 and I was working out, running, all that kind of stuff. I was fit, I had abs and shit, right? And I remember reading an article about how Sly, because he was somebody that, you look up to when you're a guy, right? In the 90s, fit, right? The epitome of fitness. He put on all this weight. And I remember reading this article about how he did it by eating donuts and cakes and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I could do that. So you can certainly tell that, you can't tell it a lot, but you can certainly kind of see it in his belly a bit. And, he plays this simple small town sheriff in Jersey, who's got to go up against the corrupt big cops in the big city. And it was he played it so the subtleties of his performance, the nuance of his performance. It wasn't overstated. It wasn't understated. It was I totally believed that he was this simple, sweet, trying to do the right thing guy. He was completely a 180 from anything we saw in Demolition Man or, Cliffhanger or Tango and Cash. He didn't appear to be this macho, male, testosterone-filled guy at all. Not at all. He played it beautifully. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, he sort of snaps, right? And, but still, even when he snaps, it's not like he's suddenly, oh, there's Sly, there's Stallone. No, he snaps within his character. So if you guys haven't seen 1997's Copland, it's got De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta. Check it out. I mean, it's a really good movie, I think. Anyway, one of his most underrated films ever in terms of his range, because obviously he doesn't have a large range, but that's a movie where you go, he ain't just an action guy. He's not just an action guy. That's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. So that's my number one favorite. But of course, a lot of those on there you can interchange depending on how I feel on any given day. So anyway, those are my top 10 favorite Sylvester Stallone movies. Comment below and let me know your top 10 favorite Sylvester Stallone movies. Now remember, if you're going to make a list that is what you think the best or what you think is your favorite, make sure to differentiate those lists because sometimes those things can change, right? Are you going to see Rambo Last Blood this weekend in the theater? Comment below and let me know. I might have to go see it. That's right, Sly. That's right.
Yes, sir.
That's right, Sly. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sly. Yes, that's right. Hey, my name's Dave McRae. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can at facebook.com/manythingsdavemcrae. That's where I tend to post in the meantime and in between time, and I'm not posting here. All my links are in the description. Check them out and tell your heart's content. I'm on Instagram now. My official website's down there. IMDb, Twitter, my merch store, Patreon. It's all down there. Check them out. Click on them. Yeah, if you want to. If not, well, that's okay too. So yeah, in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon.
Hey, cheers!